Hello, everyone. I am Katie,
I'm Holly.
and we are here for another episode of Township Talk. Today, we're going to be talking about something that has been plaguing our members full of questions on how to pay supervisors correctly. So, I guess we'll start with the first fun potential thing to consider: supervisors who are also employees of the township. So, how do they do that correctly?
We get lots of questions on that topic. And one of the things to keep in mind is if a supervisor is also going to be an employee, they do need to be hired by the Board of Supervisors at a public meeting. That needs to be for an actual position, not just working supervisor, which is one of the common issues that we see, but it should be for an actual position. What are they going to do? Are they going to be a roadmaster, road foreman, secretary? What position are they going to have with the township? And they can be any position not prohibited by the code. And the main positions that are prohibited is the supervisor cannot be a zoning hearing board member or a township manager or a police officer in that same township. They need to know, as a supervisor, am I a supervisor? Am I doing a certain job or duty that only a supervisor can do? Or is that an employee position that somebody who's not a supervisor can do? Because you can get paid as an employee only for those employee positions and those employee duties, but you can't be paid as an employee for performing the duties of township supervisor.
Exactly.
And then the next step is actually getting the compensation set. And that does have to be done by the Board of Auditors at an advertised public meeting. Normally they do that at their organizational meeting,
Right.
but it can be done at another time. If a position changes in the middle of the year, sometimes a supervisor is brought in as an employee mid-year. Maybe you can't find an employee for a position and the supervisor is willing to help out. So at that point, bring the auditors in, have an advertised public meeting, and let them set that compensation.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because that's sort of like the next question we get all the time is, okay, what if we want to what if we want to appoint a supervisor to an employee position, but we don't have a board of auditors? Nobody ran, we had a vacancy, it didn't get filled. What can they do? Do they have any options?
The short answer is you need to find two individuals willing to serve as auditors. One thing that does help is if you have a certified public accountant who's doing your audit, let those people know, let those candidates know that, look, you're asking them to come in to do one meeting a year, maybe two, but usually it's just one. And it's really just for that purpose, to set the compensation, and they have to set the compensation at a rate that's comparable to that in the area for similar work.
Right. And that's within the code. I mean, you can always pull that out directly. And I always like to plug too, this is where our salary survey tool is, I think, a really helpful program that townships can use. You can filter in your options and just pull down information that is comparable to that employee position for other townships like yours, in the area, or, with a similar population range, what have you. So check that out too, salary survey. Another additional sort of interesting one is paying the supervisors in their elected capacity. So how does that work? How can they change it? What are the options?
The elected official compensation for supervisors is set by ordinance, and the Board of Supervisors actually sets that amount, and it is capped by population category. And interestingly enough, the state legislature just made an adjustment to that to account for inflation since the last time it was adjusted. The lowest compensation levels for those under 5 with a population of less than 5,000, and that cap is $3,145.
The main question that I feel like we get the most often is, okay, well then what does it go into effect? If townships currently have an ordinance in effect, obviously it's in effect. Everybody's probably getting paid that same amount, but if they choose to change that amount following the new provisions that just passed, when does that go into effect for each supervisor?
And that goes into effect as they're reelected and begin their new term of office. And that's a restriction that's in the state constitution as well as in the township code, that an elected official's compensation can't increase or decrease during their term of office. So it will be gradually implemented over 6 years.
Right. Yeah. So it's sort of like a cascading thing. Like you'll have one supervisor at one rate and then two at another, and you have two at one, and then the third at another. So it is sort of a long process to get everybody onto the same pay rate eventually.
Under the new act, you do have two options of how to set that pay. Previously, it has been a salary, so you set an annual amount and then you divide that by 12 or by quarter or by 4 if you're paying quarterly. But you do have the option to do it on a per meeting basis. If you're going to do that, you do need to make sure that you're looking at, okay, what's the maximum or the cap rate we want to go for in our ordinance, and calculate out how many meetings you have so that you can figure out what that rate should be. And then the new language says that you get paid per meeting basis based on attendance of supervisors at advertised meetings of the Board of Supervisors. You do need to provide, if you're doing that, for excused absences. If you are doing on a per meeting basis, it is a little more complicated. You do need to track the meetings to make sure that, if you do have additional meetings, that no one is getting more than the cap that's set in your ordinance. And it's just a little bit more unwieldy to do, where the compensation, you know what it is, and can go each meeting with that amount.
Exactly. Related to that the new provisions on supervisor compensation, we are putting together a sample ordinance for all townships to use. So keep an eye out on the morning news for that. We'll be sending that out there, and I believe also sending some physical copies to all the township members that we have. So keep an eye out for that, and also just the morning news for any other updates that come your way. But I think we've tackled supervisor compensation pretty well today.
I think so too.
Well, thanks everybody for joining in.
I'm Holly.
And I'm Katie. We'll see you next time. If you like what you're seeing, subscribe to PSATS YouTube channel, hit the bell button for notifications, follow our Facebook page, and head over to psats.org for more content from the Township Video Network.